It might sound controversial, but this is how we do it. We plant crops in the cities that encourage the breeding of mosquitoes. There are ponds which are just left there. We are not proactive in prevention. In Blantyre here, surrounding townships, people share water with animals. We tend to value certain suburbs, certain sections of where people live more than other sections. So there are things that we can do which don't cost money, don't require money, which can improve the quality of life of our people. We don't do that. Our thinking is such that if we throw money at a problem, we're going to solve it. All we need is building more hospitals, more nurses, or more drugs. No. Let's do what we can without money. Then we'll be competent to think of doing something that does not require money. Right now, we have no credibility in our arguments, saying we need X, Y, Z. If we had done this prevention, being proactive, our cities, go to Harare. There's no malaria in Harare. Go to Johannesburg. No malaria in Johannesburg. Why not? Because certain crops are not allowed in Johannesburg, in Harare. But in Malawi here, everything goes. We just allow things because we say it's fate. Who am I to change things? I'm afraid I'm going to lose votes. Let's be men and women of courage. Why should I stand for election or re-election? Why? Let's be courageous enough to change our country. That's what we've got to do. Not just making platitudes here for the sake of pandering to the voters. No.
Thank you. Thank you. Distinguished candidates, remember we are focusing on what your party proposes to do to reform health service delivery that benefits all Malawians. UIP?
The health service delivery in this country, I believe, can be funded locally because, as Honorable Nensa said, we need 28 billion for drugs next year. But the President's local traveling budget is 33 billion. If we use that for drugs, we would have change for local traveling. I think the major problem in Malawi is that we focus on the politicians totally. We don't focus on the nation. So we give big allowances to politicians, even in the medical industry. The health sector is politician-friendly because I remember in the UDF era, they would even send people to Germany for heart transplants. When they fall out of government, you can't maintain the implanted heart because you are not on the fancy medical aid scheme, and the person dies. So we are spending big money for short-term fixing and then losing out in the long run because the person passes on.
If you feel critically ill,
yes,
which would be your hospital of choice?
I think I would go to the Adventist in Blantyre. That's where I've always gone. I don't have a problem with the Adventist.
Okay.
My second choice would be the Queen Elizabeth because they are well equipped and they have got a medical school next door.
Thank you. Malawi Congress Party?
It is actually ironic that politicians would want to go elsewhere and not trust Malawian hospitals when they need treatment, or their siblings and so forth. It is ironic that we lost a president in this country because we did not have emergency medical facilities that were functioning. It's not right when an ordinary person in the village is unable to go to South Africa or to go elsewhere for medical treatment because they happen to be out there in the village. We must make Malawi's hospitals viable institutions where medicines are there, the workers are well taken care of, the doctors that are abroad will come back when the conditions in this country are right. And we must have equipment that is functioning. We can do this if we have political will, number one, to put money into the Ministry of Health, not depend on developing partners to be funding the health ministry. We must prioritize preventative measures. We must make sure that procurement of medicines is done in a process that is above board. We must make sure that we do not waste the resources we have. And if we keep girls in school, for example, and then teach responsibility to parents, we can curb population growth that is getting out of hand. And we can keep girls all the way to college. They must stay in school.
Thank you. The issue of putting sufficient budget to the Ministry of Health, has come up from a number of candidates. The question that arises is, if we treble the budget next year, and then you still have cracks through which, that budget is falling, we'll be back to square one.
I represent the kind of presidency that will not allow for those cracks to develop in the first place. We will seal those that are there right now. We must be responsible enough to say we will take care of ourselves, our own people. Nothing for us without us. It is our responsibility. We must close every avenue that some unscrupulous individuals are using.
Thank you. Petra?
Thank you. Health reforms. I believe one of the interventions we need to make in this country is to come up with a hospital that we can all have trust in. At the moment, the majority, if not all our hospitals, when you go to those hospitals, depending upon what sickness it is, if you've got money, the immediate choice is not Malawian hospitals. You want to go to South Africa. I've argued before, as president of Petra, that it is utter madness that we as a country, for 50 solid years, we should continue to spend our forex on our patients, especially from the top class, getting medical attention in South Africa. So this is why we say we must build a top-flight hospital in Malawi. Number two, the issue of family planning. Yes, despite the sensitivities that are involved, we must carry out a thorough civic education. Explain to the people of Malawi the disadvantages of carrying a huge crew of family members vis-a-vis the resources that are available. Another thing that we need to work on is proper management of drugs and the delivery system. At the moment, there's a lot of pilferage. When we close those gaps, when we work on ensuring that the people that steal drugs are held accountable, we'll begin to see results in this country. But we should also monitor private pharmacies, because this is where the drugs that are coming from central medical stores, most of them, they disappear to these private pharmacies. So we must institute close monitoring. Another intervention that I think is important is to look after our medical staff, our doctors, our nurses, our clinical officers. Let us pay them a decent salary. At the moment, you go to Queens, you can cry. But these people, they are sacrificing a lot for this country. Let's do something about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mose Party?
Thank you very much. I think I am here basically as one of the people who has been working in this field. And the solutions to our problems are very complex. And I don't think that we can really cover them on this 4 or 2 minutes. So let me just summarize them for you. The first one is basically lack of knowledge. A lot of us don't know what disease is. Because we don't know what disease is, there's nothing we can do to mitigate it. But what I want to understand also is that in these complex issues, you need human resources who are competent and knowledgeable. Medicine is a science, and technologies of medicine are happening every day. In the absence of good research and understanding what's going on, there's no way you can mitigate those impacts. Infrastructure itself is actually coupled with the laboratory facilities, which you need. Having a doctor or having a good medical facility, you go to South Africa because you will get a diagnosis which is clear And if you do a smear, it will be clear because you have the people and the understanding what goes on. And we don't have this. Therefore, we need to increase our education system. That's why most parties are advocating the 4 central hospitals become training institutions. 1 college of medicine is not enough. The laboratory facilities also need support systems, infrastructure for laboratory. We need some scientists who should be able to create machines for hematology, machines for histopathology. These things we don't have. We import everything, and the reagents we import. This is impossible for us to sustain. Drugs, why can't we not make some more drugs? Why should Pharmanova not be able to be empowered to make some of the crucial drugs, antibiotics, which we need? At the moment, it's just making painkillers and cough syrups, which are really not necessary as far as I'm concerned. And obviously, let's come up with a very structured system which will make us innovate and motivate our people to become pure scientists who then can be in a position where they can argue in their fora. We're capable of doing this. We have got bilateral partners who can give us the experts we need, but we need to know what we're wanting. In Malawi, we're not aware. Our doctors can become private doctors when we can group them in systems to make sure that they can use MASIM. These things are possible. I am the champion because I have a private clinic, I've been teaching at the College of Medicine, I've worked in government hospitals, so I know what I'm talking about. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Professor Chisi, you've joined politics, and sadly, that's a huge loss to the health delivery system in Malawi. How do we reconcile those two?
It's not a loss. If you hear what people are talking about here, you need somebody like me to be at the helm so that we can have at least something functioning. And on top of that, on top of that, you need educational system which picks up all the people. I came from a village, and I'm a professor at the moment. No chance of this happening to our young people today. That's why I was very frustrated. Having worked in a government system which don't work, administration does not work, nobody seems to understand what's happening. I said, no, enough is enough. I'm not going to take this rank down. That's why I'm standing in front of you today.
Thank you. New Labour Party.
Thank you. The problem in the health sector is indeed a crisis at the moment. But perhaps it is an illusion for us around here just to talk of saying we'll put more drugs, we'll pay nurses better, we'll do this without necessarily identifying the source of funding. The biggest problem with this sector is that when the people in the Ministry of Finance are budgeting for this sector, they use a balancing act. What they need to do, and what we shall do as Labour, is to actually come up with the actual requirement in all the hospitals of drugs, whatever, and come up with the needs. Once you've come with the needs, then you cost them. When you have costed them, you know that what is required is in fact double what the ministry at the moment is being funded at. So the difficulty has been to say, because the ministry requires a lot of money, let's actually just give them what we can. And in midway through, 3 months down the line, they've run out of money because they're by drugs. We'll not do a balancing act. Secondly, that the expenditure on health should be reinforced as a proper expenditure. That whatever the case, whatever we're going through as a country, we should make sure that expenditure on health is not compromised, because when you compromise expenditure on health, it's people's lives at stake. But the most important dimension of all this is the fact that in order for the health sector to be well funded, the economy must tick. If we sit here and say that we'll be able to fund the health sector sustainably, then we're just actually imagining things. It won't happen until the economy is put right. So as we are trying to put these things in the short term, we'll also at the same time bring an economic stimulus program, which will make sure that this economy has widened its tax base, that this economy is able to sustain its social services, including those of the Ministry of Health. Otherwise, we'll be saying here that the Ministry of Health is poorly funded, it's complicated, and will give you more drugs when you don't even know where the money will come from. I am saying that the Labour Party has a roadmap to transform the economy, because when the economy is doing very well, the health sector will receive the benefits of it, and therefore will be able to sustain the expenditure in that sector. Thank you.
Thank you. You've referred to the compromise of expenditure, that we can't afford to compromise expenditure in the, with regard to the health sector. Shed some light here. During your tenure as Minister of Finance in the UDF government, and we all know that once a budget has been passed, that's a law of the land. Was there any situation during your time as Minister of Finance, where somebody was taken to court because of compromise of expenditure?
When I'm saying compromising, it's not compromising expenditure from the point of view of spending more. Compromising from the fact that if the Minister of Health is requiring 50 billion and you give him 30 billion, then actually the activity of health has compromised, because he won't be able to fulfill what is required. So what we are saying here is that we'll first of all identify the needs. We know the needs are more. Anyway, let me put it straight, that this country spends about 200 billion on corruption and fraud and thieving. So we'll take about 50 billion from there to put in here so that people have good drugs.
Thank you. Chipani Chafuko.
Thank you very much. Let me start by commenting on a point made by the leader of Malawi Congress Party. He sounded like he was, or he has been, privy to the report of the death of our former president, that according to him, he died because of lack of expertise in the country. I would be very happy to see that report as well, if indeed he has seen it. Having said that, Chipani Chafuko believes that in the Ministry of Health, a number of things need to be looked into. The first thing is we have to attract back into the country most of the doctors who are currently working abroad. For example, in Manchester, England alone, there are more doctors there from Malawi than we have in this country. Their reason for being there is not simply money. It is motivational issues like, if I come back home, would I be able to find the kind of equipment that I will need to practice my trade properly? The answer is no. Does the government, through that ministry, have the right equipment? The answer would be yes. However, we fail to maintain it. Do we have trained people in our laboratories to deal with that? The Professor Chisi here has commented on that. Perhaps no. So we, as Chipani Chafuko, would like to look into those issues to make sure that we have a situation in our hospitals which is attractive